Hey guys, I'm Brenton Thwaites, and we're chatting all things Searching for the Man, which is my record that's out with Milky. My musical background is very diverse, like a big variety of music. My father was a piano player and a singer, and I kind of grew up, wanting to play the piano and singing like him. And then in my teens, I switched to the guitar and wanted to, play around with more singer-songwriter vibes, John Mayer and Oasis and Jack Johnson and that kind of music. But I was also, in my teen years, my mother influenced an array of different genres and, different artists from back in the day, such as Aretha Franklin and Sade. She had a Sade record on, rinse and repeat for what seemed like my whole childhood. And she introduced me to, Santana and John Mayer and, wonderful guitarists. When she saw that I, had a thing for guitar, she kind of pushed me in that direction. And then it wasn't really until, my 20s when I started working as an actor that I realized that 90% of being an actor is sitting around doing nothing, So I would take my guitar every day, every set, every moment that I got, I would practice. I kind of had this vision that I would use, the time being on set, if I could, to practice my guitar and write songs. So, a lot of the songs on this record are pieces written in between scenes and on set and in my trailer and on the way to work. So it's kind of an amalgamation, a big group of songs from a lot of different various influences. One of the blessings about, I always thought it was a disadvantage that I didn't play cover gigs or I didn't, busk on the streets for 10,000 hours. And there is a bit of, there's something to that. You get your live hours in. That's something that I'm still developing at the moment. I guess the blessing of that is when I went to, write songs, and the songwriter in me didn't have a lot of, I didn't know a lot of songs. I didn't know a lot of cover songs. So I wasn't really ever going for, typical chord progressions. It was really quite a pure experience. So if I had a song idea, it wasn't like, oh, that sounds like something, or that, that blues song is a 1-4-5. It kind of just, because I didn't know too much musically, it found its own way. And I think through that, now looking back, there's really unique patterns and, kind of unconventional grooves and timing to pre-choruses and choruses. Chocolate Squares has this chorus that has this weird timing. Love can be so short sometimes. 2, 3, 4. It doesn't really feel that fair. 2, 3, 4. Hits you when you close your eyes. It's and then it goes back to a different timing for the verse. So it's kind of, for better or worse, not knowing too many other songs was an advantage to me, kind of creating fresh music and, something that's, original. Letting me carve my own path. And there's definitely, I say that, but I admit to, really, what you're made of is my Stratocaster upbringing, me really wanting to crunch out a blues song because I just love the blues. And that 12-bar blue riff is pretty familiar, I think, to audiences, but definitely influences of some of my favorite musicians. But I think just not knowing so much, not kind of letting the songs come and not expecting too much, not wanting to turn them into a pop hit or a this or a that, just letting the song kind of be its own thing. And I think that's probably, now that I look back, that's the genius of Justin Abbott, my producer. He had that in mind, I think, with songs, letting the song be what it wants to be, as much as, songwritery spirituality, it sounds a bit whatever. There is something to that, there's something to, I definitely experienced the frustration of trying to turn, a cool moment or a cool idea into a pop song or into a ballad, and forcing it just doesn't work. It kind of has to, take its, what you're made of is a 12-bar blues thing that I tried to, build more of a chorus out of it, more of a pre-chorus and a bridge, and it just didn't really work. And when I brought Sarah's vocal in, it just kind of flourished into this like thing that was its own thing, and it doesn't have any of those things. It's kind of just the same thing over and over, but it's cool. Same with Searching for the Man. Searching for the Man musically is just a repetitive 4-chord, Travis picking thing in D, that became, we kind of just left that alone and let it be, the song that it wanted to be, which was this quiet, introspective singer-songwriter tune that wasn't so, crazy. We weren't shooting for the stars. We were kind of just letting it be what it wanted to be. The lyrics in the record are largely inspired by a lot of the poetry I used to write. I've always written in my journal. I've always written poems. When I had my first child, Birdie, we were in LA, and I just had this great routine of waking up and writing my dreams or an idea and building a poem out of that idea. So I kind of unknowingly developed that side of songwriting, the poetic aspect of songwriting in that time in LA. It kind of needs to be said, Justin Aberden and Sarah McCulley, who's also a co-producer on the record, they became my songwriting team. They really... when I decided I was doing the record, the channel kind of just opened up. It's that weird thing of, now if I were to write a song, probably would be terrible, but if I was to decide that this week we were making a record, I've got to write 10 great songs, 10 great songs will come. You create the space for it, and, your brain, your heart, your spirit, your creative energy opens up because you've said to yourself, this is going to happen. A record's coming, we're writing songs. And that kind of happened. Some of the songs were developed. Come Back Down to Earth is a song that I had written. It's slightly metaphorical. A lot of the lyrics are quite literal. It's about kind of being stuck in a job that I didn't really creatively feel like I was fulfilled and wanted to do something else, and wanting to come back down to earth, wanting to come back down to Australia, wanting to put my feet in the sand and feel like myself again. And so a lot of the songs, have that similar theme of coming home and homesickness, being away. And there's a song called Traveling Way of Life, which is about me and my kids and my partner on the road, me working as an actor, which is the dream. It is the dream. I don't want to paint any bad things about it. We had the best time. We're having the best time, but it gets really hard, and my partner has, she's had babies all over the world in random places. And, as great as it is, and, we're making money and we're living the dream, I think for me and Chloe, our dream was to return to Australia, and have a farm and raise our kids on the, and it's kind of there's many dreams. And they change. When I was younger, my dream was to go to Hollywood and be this star and make tons of money. And then that changed when I had a kid. That dream became a little different. Still wanted that, but also, wanted to be a great dad and wanted to be grounded and wanted to have my family around and play music. And so, a lot of the record is about kind of changing paths and that moment of realizing that, I don't know if I'm on the right path here. I need to, trust myself and do what my heart desires, for better or worse. It's a risk playing music, because you are the actor that is trying to get into music. It's not, there's nothing really I'm not hiding that. I exactly am that. I am the actor that's trying to get into music, and I'm doing that because I love music. I love songwriting. I want to keep doing it for the rest of my life. Yeah, that stigma is, it's true. I'm an actor trying to break into the music business. From the sonic side of it, we knew early on that this was going to be a record where we're swimming in a bunch of lanes, and that itself, I think, was just due to perhaps my inexperience, it's kind of it was, like I was saying earlier, it was kind of an advantage, because it's given me, a variety of different things on this record. The one thing that we stuck true to was I wanted the record to sound like a band was playing with me. I didn't want to sound like I'm in my bedroom on my own I wanted this big sound. I wanted it to be quite theatrical, and perhaps this is the actor side coming into the record. I wanted to be able to tell a story live, to have a theatrical arc with highs and lows, fast and slow, happy and sad, so I could play a compelling live show. And that was always the dream of the record was, man, let's play this live. Like, this record is going to be played, live, it's going to tell this story. I didn't really want, nor am I compelled by performances where people are playing the same note, singing the similar songs, staying in their lane. And, maybe that's the actor side too. Like, I've done movies that are quite diverse. I've done horrors and TV in Australia and, you know, all kinds of things. So I'm just trying to have my cake and eat it too. You know? The next record, admittedly, the next one, I want to take the opposite approach. I do see the value in, you know, staying in a lane and developing that genre. I'm considering maybe doing 4 or 5 songs that I've written that are exactly what I just said I didn't want to do for this, you know, that are a bit pared back, and that is, you know, pushing my vocal and pushing my songwriting. Maybe it is just a guitar and, you know, a violin or guitar and, you know. So I'm kind of, this record was very much, let's go make a great live show. And now that I've done that, I see the value in paring it back a little bit and, yeah, and just kind of growing with yourself and yeah. My experience of writing is in the morning, I get a coffee and I pick up my guitar, and the first thing I play is usually something really interesting. You know, I haven't warmed up, I haven't even tuned the guitar. I just get on and I'll play something from somewhere. You know, later in the day, I'm kind of thinking of that little thing that I played that, wow, what was that? And try and build that into a song. And sometimes, you know, I'll have like, you know, I have a song called By My Side, which is this percussive, rhythmic start to the song. And I just played that for years. And I was like, what, this is a song, but what is it? So, you know, sometimes it's a guitar part that is really fun to play, and, you know, just, I can't stop playing it, and it's, you know, I just muck around. There's a bass and I muck around with, you know, the relative minor, or do I go to that? And that could happen for years. And then one day I'll just sing the line and you know, base everything off that line. What I don't do, which I should do, and I'm going to try to do this more often, is sit down for a certain amount of time and write, you know, and specifically just write all the bad things, like have a chord progression or whatever, and just linger out an hour worth of songwriting and just see what happens. I don't do that. I should do that. I need the discipline to, I think to grow as a songwriter. That's probably my next, you know, 5 to 10 years, is developing that discipline, that time, booking it in, songwriting, getting lyrics down, getting all the bad versions down until you get that good version, you know. Dang, that's a good question. I would choose 3 songs that represent the record. I think Come Back Down to Earth, because that's a song that, you know, is quite exposing. It's vulnerable, and the simplicity in the chord structure and the way where it sits in my voice, I kind of always find I can always sing that and represent the song quite well. It's one that I think, and feedback-wise, it's one that people go, oh, damn, it's a good song. And you know, it's a song that I've always wondered if it was any good and if I was doing the right thing. And so yeah, Come Back Down to Earth is definitely one. Chocolate Squares in Tennessee is just a fun song. The chorus is great. It's really fun to sing. So if you're singing along, I think that chorus is the best sung with an array of people singing it at once. And then I would have to say Flying High. Flying High is a song that wasn't on the record, actually. It was a song that kind of we thought was going nowhere, and, you know, it had similar themes to Come Back Down to Earth and other songs. And we decided to do beds for it and to include it in the mix of songs that we were recording. And it just became one of my faves, one of all of our faves. The solo on it really sits nicely, and, you know, and I remember playing that solo and just feeling really confident and good that I was finally cracking some cool, you know, guitar-y part on this song. And it sits in a really honest part of my voice. You know, I can't really not get into the truth of that song when I sing it. It's hard to fake. I have to kind of dial in and emotionally go there with Flying High. I love the idea behind Love Can Be So Short Sometimes, you know, the chorus of Chocolate Squares in Tennessee. That song is a fun song. You know, it's about an audition that I had for Robert Rodriguez, the director, in Austin, Texas. It's actually not in Tennessee, so I'm a liar. Tennessee sounds better. Sorry, all those Tennessee people are like, you're not from here. You've never been here. Chocolate Squares in Tennessee is actually Chocolate Squares in Austin. God damn it. It's about this girl that I met who I was auditioning with that we just got on like a house on fire, and we just, you know, and she got me high on the plane back from Austin with these little chocolate squares that I didn't know were weed chocolate squares. She probably told me, but I'm just going with the story that I didn't know. And just the idea of like, you can meet someone and either have a great connection, fall in love, like really get along, have great chemistry, and then like ships in the night, they kind of disappear from your lives, and that kind of happens to everyone, especially, on the road, being young, meeting people. And so I kind of just like the idea behind love can be so short sometimes. It can be short, it doesn't have to be this 80 years together. Love can be so short sometimes. And it doesn't really seem that fair. And then the other line that I like, that I've been listening to, and it kind of peeks out, is, am I selfish to be sad? That's a line in the second chorus of Searching for the Man. Am I selfish to be sad? The idea that, the world like it is, and people going through what they're going through, and in much worse scenarios and situations than mine. There is a guilt that comes in when I'm sad, or I go through a moment, or I have a lull, like we all do. There's that obvious thing of like, why are you sad? You have a beautiful family, and it's a great block of land, you've got this career, and you're an actor. But everyone goes through that, and I feel like that line, especially Australians, we're really lucky here. I don't know, after traveling, for my 20s, doing movies around the world, like, always come home. I just love our way of life. I love our groundedness, our honesty, our, the better part of Tall Poppy, I think, really grounds us all into this non-bullshit kind of culture. And coming back from Hollywood, it's really refreshing, and it can kind of, it's really inspired me, I guess, artistically. And yeah, just that feeling of like, am I guilty? I feel guilty to be sad. Why do I feel sad? And just, the idea of like giving yourself a bit of a kick up the arse, but at the same time being truthful to that feeling, honoring that sadness, trying to figure out what it is. And, instead of drinking a bottle of wine and having a joint and whatever, you just sitting in the stillness of it and the silence of it. And, I feel like people can relate to that line. Am I selfish to be sad? Because it can feel like a very self-centered thing sometimes when people are going through shite left, right, and center to be sad, but it's real. They complement each other so well. The first one, for sure, acting has had such an influence on, music, and there's so many actors out there that are just phenomenal musicians, that I want to try and get them to take the leap and do music, because it's very common to have, be on a set with a guitar and have people play songs and be able to sing amazingly. The other way around, has music inspired by acting? It 100% has in this way. As an actor, I was talented. I had this gift. I got ahead quite quickly. I didn't, I wasn't waiting around. I wasn't unemployed for too long. And I felt good. I felt confident, and I felt like I was, I had something valuable. But as a musician, it was a slow burn, developing and growing. I sucked for so long. Even now, it's like just getting the confidence to play live is tricky, and it's over-rehearsing as opposed to with acting. You can over-rehearse and be wooden. You kind of want to keep it loose. The work ethic that I have developed around my music, and the confidence that has come not from anyone else but myself, and not from anything else but practicing and staying with it and persisting and being resilient, is something that has very much affected my work as an actor. I mean, just a simple thing of, getting close to a huge movie and missing out, and the constant rejection. I mean, even now, I'm auditioning all the time and never getting it, sometimes getting it, but quite often not getting it, and not being the guy, and not being right for whatever reason. Music has taught me to really enjoy the moment, enjoy the audition. It's a chance for you to perform, it's an audition, but you get to act, you get to have fun and put your take and be creative. And so I've learnt to do that. With music, you can pick up a guitar and you can play the art form almost in its entirety right then and there. Acting is, harder to do that for obvious reasons. You need a crew, you need an editor, it's much more infrastructure around you getting to do what you want to do. But there are things in acting, and there's ways to develop, like auditioning, and your mentality around auditioning, dealing with rejection, reading another script, putting your socks back on, getting back out there, that I've definitely learned from playing music. Yeah, I think it's really important. Live music it's so inspiring. It's something that I've always enjoyed. It's something that has always been very different for me. To hear the songs and then to go watch the musician play the songs is just so different. It's so much more elevated when you get to see musicians play live in whatever format, in a bar with 3 people, or on the Budweiser stage in Toronto, or Wembley, wherever it is. And that's why this record, instead of doing an EP or something smaller, I wanted to make a record that I could play live with my band. I really wanted to give an audience that experience and be there in the flesh. I think it's also, the community that you grow, the community that you're building as an artist it's a true art to represent the song live. That's what I'm learning at the moment, that, these parts that my musicians created and sonically the music that my producer had in his mind and kind of built for us is incredible. And now I have to go get the best musicians, and luckily all my mates from the Gold Coast are phenomenal musicians, and I am really lucky with who I got for my gig at the Marquetta. But yeah, I mean, live music is really where it's at. That's where I've gotten inspired. That's where I want to perform. That's where I want to build my audience. I want to travel around playing everywhere. That's kind of the dream for the next leg, yeah. Sade, Aretha Franklin, John Mayer, Santana. Ed Sheeran, Vance Joy. Room for Squares. A rom-com of some sort. What's a good rom-com? Love Actually. Am I singing in tune? Miley Cyrus. It was actually Andrea Bocelli. He played in Cairns at the Civic Centre. My mother took me, and it was phenomenal. I'll never forget it. It was so inspiring for me. I was 12 or 13 years old. Shout out to Andrea. John Mayer in Toronto at the Scotiabank Arena. He just was amazing, and I got to meet him halfway. He's just he just played his guitar and chatted, and he was really nice. My partner was pregnant at the time, and she was like, get me home, get me out of here. But he was really nice to her, so she's like, oh yeah, I'll stay. And just to see like those solos, the intricacy, the guitarist, the musicianship from all of the band and John, they were just cooking with gas. They were so tight. It's as simple as something that nobody knows. But Jack Johnson, me and my buddy learnt all those songs, and just we had it on rinse and repeat. It just kind of stuck in our heads, and we loved the idea of being the surfy vibe and the surf music, and yeah. I bought a CD from Sanity. It was Bias B. It was like 5 or 6 songs on it. I was really into Aussie hip hop at the time. Yeah, I can't remember any of those songs, but I remember enjoying the music. The second one would have probably been the Nosebleed Section, Hilltop Hoods. Yeah, that was my vibe back in the day. Spice Girl. Surfy Spice. It would be Toronto, the Budweiser stage in Toronto. I saw Vance Joy there. He killed. It was amazing. I saw Santana there. I saw Alicia Keys there. Toronto is just the best city. Everyone goes to Toronto because it's close to the States. But the city itself there's so many huge venues just right in downtown. So it's 10 minutes to any venue. Bars, restaurants are amazing. Living there was it was some of the most inspiring years of my life, because you got to see just phenomenal musicians on every corner all the time. My go-to karaoke song was Jingle Bells. Now it should be something else, because now that I've got a record coming out, it should be like some sick Jeff Buckley tune or something. He's singing Jingle Bells? What, he has a record out? This guy, get him off the stage. Queens of the Stone Age, or like Violent Soho, or like some cool rock band cover the songs, because I just feel like the more bang that the sound has, it would be kind of cool in that context. A Metallica, I don't know, like some kind of bigger, rockier sound would be kind of cool. As they're more like lilty and melodic, it might be nice to, go the other way and do something crazy. I would say like, phrase, but there's not enough lyrics in them, I mean, I guess like, your successful Aussie musicians, like Aussie actors doing well in LA, I think representing us on the world stage does really good things. Like Vance Joy, for example, and Tasha Sultana and Amy Shark and Ocean Alley, those bands that just, I don't know, like Kim Churchill, the bands that kind of, there's a group of musos that have really found their niches in certain parts of the globe. Parkway Drive, a Byron Bay band who, they're massive now, but back in the day were like huge in Argentina and Brazil and, found their little niches. Now they've found a huge niche. But, Ocean Alley and Kim Churchill finding their niche in Europe and certain parts over there. Musicians that just are not shy of going to the places, and not shy of touring and, despite the outcome, just putting themselves out there and going to a different country or whatever. I think it gives us a good name. Oh, stop touring, bro. You're getting tired. Hopefully, that advice. No, it would be, don't be afraid to try the next thing. This is music. I love it. It's been a part of my life for so long. It will always be a part of my life. But, I've written a script. I've written a 2 TV. I want to produce. I still really love acting. I've got so many different things that I want to do. It would be to stop calling work a dream. A dream is a dream until it's work, until it's not a dream. And I think you can get lost in the word of it being a dream because it's work. And to get to work, to make a movie, to live this life is a dream. But it's also really hard work. And I think it's, for me personally, I think the advice that I would like to hear is, hey man, you are not living the dream. Go to work. You have a job. It's a great job. You love your job, but it's a job. It's not a dream. You have to do the thing, it'd be that. The book that gave me the most inspiration, poetry-wise, I guess, would be Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts. A book that I loved that, was really Aussie and earthy and grounded and, I guess there's tones of that in my record, but just kind of, coastal and the characters are really deep and sad and beautiful would be Dirt Music. Tim Winton's Dirt Music. I think that book is just such an incredible piece of work. My wife was reading The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart by Holly Ringland. That was a beautiful novel as well. And I'm reading, at the moment, a book about the Comanches, like massacring each other and, and just the wild frontier of that time. And that's a hard read, but yeah. I'm more into like the romantic, poetic novels and Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran. You know what? There wasn't that moment. I was always a musician, it was always just, maybe in my head, I decided, let's make a record because I had the money to pay for it myself. I wasn't asking someone for an investment, having to prove myself. It was like, you're doing this yourself, it's for you. In my heart, I was always a musician, it was really, and I was quite secret about that. I didn't play a lot. I didn't admit it to my musician friends. I didn't tell anyone I was doing a record. I was very quiet with it. I wanted to just do the record and not tell people I was doing the record. Yeah, I think I was always a musician. It's like, my buddy's in the military and, he said to me, he's like, the guys have already gotten in their heads. They've already passed selection. They're not thinking, will I pass select? They've already passed. They're just there doing it, passing selection. And I think it's the same for an artist. You're already there. You're already an artist. It's just what you do and how you do it. And one of my favorite quotes is, take your broken heart and turn it into art. Music is just a direct access to that. It's an art form that you can do right now. I can pick up this guitar, we could all write a song together and sing it together. And the feeling that that gives you is something different every time, you know, but it's a cathartic release. You know, it's something that, you know, I think we've always had music. Music has always been in our beings, in our culture. And I think, you know, as a songwriter, it's, you know, it can be quite self-indulgent to, you know, write a song about how you feel all the time or about whatever. But at the same time, it can be anything. You know, it can be a song for my kid. You know, I write kids songs. It could be a fun song. It could be... The point is, it's really hard to articulate, you know, how much of a release, how cathartic it is, how important it is. I guess I'm just chasing that feeling of listening to a song for the first time and knowing in your heart that you also feel those things, that you know, you love that bit, that you know, you cry with that vocal or the lyric. And for the listener, it can be a release as well. It's not just the songwriter. It's not for that experience. It's more of, this is the thing that I'm sharing with you to hopefully give you guys the same feeling, the same experience through my lyrics and my words.